Welcome to the Storymakers podcast. I'm Talina Adamo. Today, I'd like to share an article with you. The most expensive film mistakes happen before you ever film. I learned pre-production lessons the hard way. If you're anything like I was when I first started, or like most beginner filmmakers, you probably imagine filmmaking as cameras, actors, lights, and action. You picture production, the excitement of being on set, the camera rolling, the actors performing, the crew working together to bring the story to life. That is the exciting part. It's also the part everyone can see. But the truth is, some of the biggest and most expensive filmmaking mistakes happen long before anyone says, "Roll camera." They happen during pre-production. I didn't fully appreciate this when I first started making films. Back then, once the script was finished, I was eager to get moving. I wanted to hold auditions, scout locations, gather equipment, schedule shooting days, and finally see the story come alive. Planning felt like the boring part. It felt like something standing between me and the real filmmaking. Experience taught me otherwise. Pre-production is not something that delays the filmmaking process. Pre-production is part of the filmmaking process, and when it is rushed, skipped, or treated as an afterthought, the problems do not simply disappear. They wait for you on set. A missing prop can delay a scene. A forgotten costume can create continuity issues. An unavailable actor can force an entire schedule to change. A location problem can derail an entire production day. A dead battery can stop filming. A missing cable can make an important piece of equipment useless. A scene planned around natural sunlight can become impossible when the weather changes or the schedule runs late. Even something as simple as not knowing where your cast and crew will park can create delays before the day has officially begun. Each one of these problems may sound small on its own, but filmmaking is made up of hundreds of small details. When several of those details are overlooked at the same time, they can quickly turn into a much larger problem. Most filmmaking disasters do not appear out of nowhere. They usually begin as a small question that were never asked during planning. Who's bringing the prop? Does the actor have the correct wardrobe? Do we have permission to film at this location? Is there electricity available? Can we control the sound? What happens if it rains? How long will makeup take? How much time do we actually need to film the scene? Who is responsible for the footage after the shoot? Do we have enough food and water for everyone? None of these questions sound particularly glamorous, but ignoring them can become very expensive. And expensive does not always mean money. It can mean losing hours of daylight. It can mean exhausting your actors. It can mean asking your crew to stay several hours longer than expected. It can mean losing access to a location. It can mean discovering during editing that an important shot was never recorded. It can also cost you trust. When people agree to work on your film, they are giving you more than their time. They're giving you their energy, their creativity, and often their faith in your ability to guide the project. A chaotic set can make people feel as though their time is not being respected. You do not need to have every answer. You do not need a massive budget or professional production office, but you do need to show that you have thought through the day. That is one of the reasons professional production spends so much time in pre-production. It is not because professionals believe they can eliminate every possible problem. They know they cannot. Something unexpected will almost always happen. An actor may become sick. A piece of equipment may stop working. The weather may change. A nearby construction crew may suddenly begin drilling during your most emotional scene. The goal of pre-production is not to create a perfectly controlled environment. The goal is to discover as many problems as possible before they become emergencies. There is a major difference between handling an unexpected problem and being surprised by something that could have been prevented. One of the most valuable habits a filmmaker can develop is learning to think ahead. When you read through your script, do not only read it as a writer, read it as a producer, read it as a director. Read it as the person who will have to organize everything written on the page. If the script says a character walks into a crowded restaurant during a thunderstorm, that may sound like one simple sentence. From a production standpoint, however, that sentence creates many questions. Where is the restaurant? Do you have permission to film there? Will the restaurant still be operating during the shoot? How will you control the customers in the background? Do you need background actors? How will you create the sound and appearance of a thunderstorm? Will the actor enter the restaurant wet? If so, how many matching costumes will you need for additional takes? Will the wet floor create a safety issue? That single sentence may be far more complicated and expensive to film than it appeared while you were writing it. This is why a script breakdown is so important. A breakdown forces you to look at every scene and identify exactly what it requires. Cast, background actors, wardrobe, props, makeup, locations, vehicle, animals, special effects, sound effects, stunts, set dressing, special equipment. Every detail written into the script creates a production requirement, and every production requirement needs a plan. This does not mean you have to remove every ambitious idea from your film. It means you need to understand what those ideas will require before you arrive on set. Sometimes planning reveals that a scene needs to be simplified. Sometimes it shows you that two locations can be combined. Sometimes you realize that a difficult exterior scene can be rewritten as an interior. Sometimes you discover that a prop you imagine will be difficult to find, but a small adjustment to the story can solve the problem. These decisions are much easier to make while you are still planning. They are far more difficult to make when your actors are already dressed, your crew is standing around, and the clock is ticking. Another major area filmmakers underestimate is scheduling. A schedule is not simply a list of scenes you hope to finish that day. It needs to account for setup time, lighting changes, wardrobe changes, makeup, sound, problems, rehearsals, breaks, meals, company moves, and the unexpected delays that occur on nearly every production. A scene that lasts 30 seconds in the finished film may take several hours to shoot. You may need a wide shot, medium shots, close-ups, inserts, reaction shots, and additional takes for performance or technical problems. If the scene contains several actors, each camera angle may require new lighting, new marks, and new rehearsals. This is why it is so easy for new filmmakers to schedule too much. On paper, 5 short scenes may not appear difficult. But if those scenes require multiple locations, costume changes, complicated lighting, or emotional performances, the day may quickly become unrealistic. When the schedule begins to fall behind, filmmakers often rush. And when everyone starts rushing, mistakes happen. Shots are forgotten, continuity is overlooked, performances are not given enough time. Sound is ignored, the crew becomes tired, the director begins making decisions out of panic instead of creativity. A realistic schedule protects more than the production day. It protects the quality of the film. Pre-production also gives you the opportunity to prepare for what matters creatively. Planning is not only about clipboards, call sheets, and equipment lists. It gives you time to think about how you want the audience to experience the story. What is the emotional purpose of the scene? Whose perspective are we following? Which moments deserve a close-up? Where should the camera remain still? When should it move? What visual details need to be captured for the edit? A shot list does not have to lock you into every decision. You can still make discoveries on set, but it gives you a foundation. Without that foundation, it's easy to capture the obvious shots and forget the smaller moments that make a scene feel complete. A character gripping the edge of a table, a glance exchanged across the room, a hand reaching for a door but hesitating, an important object placed quietly in the background. Those details are often what give the editor choices later. And that is another important lesson. You should not only plan for the shoot, you should plan for the edit. It is easy to think you have filmed a scene because you captured every line of dialogue. But dialogue alone may not be enough to shape the pacing, hide a cut, or strengthen a performance. You may need reactions. You may need room tone. You may need establishing shots. You may need inserts and cutaways. You may need a few seconds before and after each action so the editor has somewhere to make the cut. The editing room will reveal every shortcut you took during production, but many of those shortcuts begin as missing plans during pre-production. The more questions you ask before production begins, the fewer emergencies you will face later. What does the scene require? Who needs to be there? What time should everyone arrive? How long will setup take? What could interrupt the sound? What happens if something goes wrong? Do we have backup location? Do we have backup batteries? Do we have extra memory cards? Does everyone know what they are responsible for? Does the schedule allow enough time to do the work well? I have learned that filmmaking is often less about solving problems and more about preventing the preventable ones. You still need to be adaptable. You still need to think quickly. You still need to solve unexpected problems when they appear. But your creativity energy should not be wasted searching for a prop that someone forgot to bring. Your actors should not be waiting while you decide where the camera belongs for every shot. Your crew should not be discovering the schedule for the first time after they arrive. Preparation allows you to use your energy where it matters most. On the story, on the performances, on the images, on the moments you could never completely plan because they only happen when the actors, camera, location, and story finally come together. That is what pre-production really is. It's not paperwork. It is not busy work. It is not something you do only because professional filmmakers say you should. It is risk management. It's communication. It is a creative preparation. It is creating a roadmap for your project before dozens of people begin investing their time, energy, and creativity into it. And no matter how small your film is, planning matters. In fact, when your resources are limited, planning matters even more. A large production may be able to replace a damaged prop, rent additional equipment, extend a location, or add another shooting day. A small independent production may not have those options. When you have limited time and money, every decision carries more weight. That does not mean you cannot make something ambitious. It means your ambition needs a plan. A well-planned, low-budget film will almost always have a better chance of succeeding than a poorly planned, expensive one. Preparation cannot guarantee that everything will go perfectly. It can, however, give you the flexibility to respond when it does not. When you know your priorities, you can decide which shots are essential if time begins running out. When you understand your location, you can adjust when the light changes. When everyone knows the schedule, they can help keep the day moving. When your materials are organized, small problems remain small. The audience may never see your script breakdown. They will never see your production calendar, shot list, prop list, wardrobe notes, location agreements, or call sheets. They may never know how many questions you asked or how many problems you solved before the first shooting day. But they will absolutely see the results of that preparation. They will see it in the performances you had time to capture. They will see it in the continuity. They will hear it in the sound. They will feel it in the pacing. They will recognize it in a film that feels intentional rather than rushed. And that is why some of the most expensive filmmaking mistakes happen before you ever film a single frame. Thanks for listening to the Storymakers podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, I'd love for you to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes about writing, filmmaking, storytelling, and the creative journey. You can also follow along the Storymakers on Substack, Spotify, and on my Talina Adamo YouTube channel, where I share new articles, podcast episodes, behind-the-scenes updates, and resources for storytellers. I recently launched the Beginner Filmmaker Blueprint on Teachable, a step-by-step course designed to help aspiring filmmakers write, plan, and complete their very first short film. For a limited time, you can enroll for 50% off. Use the coupon code FIRST50 at checkout to bring the price from $99 to just $49.50. More than just a course, you'll join a filmmaking challenge and a supportive community of creators who are taking the same journey. Ready to make your first film? Click the link below in this article. Until next time, keep creating and keep telling your story.